Hey guys, welcome to the Pistons Talk post game podcast show. Hope you guys are having a great Friday. Probably not that your Detroit Pistons just got blown out by the New York Knicks. We got a final score of 128 to 98. This was a really ugly game to watch, start to finish. If you are new here, if you're watching live on YouTube, what we do here with these post game shows is we go over some notes that I take during the game, kind of break down the quarters. And then after I'm done doing that, we go to questions and comments. If you have any questions about today's game or the Detroit Pistons in general, you have any comments about tonight's game, if you're a Piston fan watching this, or even a New York Knicks fan watching this, you have comments, questions, we'll do that towards the end of the podcast. But yeah, let's get into tonight's post game show. So it was all New York Knicks to start that first quarter. They looked like they were hungry. They looked like, well, let's get this game over with. And they basically did that in the first quarter. I thought the game was over in the first quarter personally. I honestly thought that just the way that they played, they were going to take advantage of every mistake the Pistons made. And again, if you're a Piston fan watching this, the turnovers, again, they had 7 turnovers in the first quarter. And the New York Knicks are a very well coached basketball team under Coach Thibodeau. They took advantage of it. Just being a offense that's 5 out, the Pistons just could not contain them. Going up against the offense that has Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, and others, um, the floor was just so wide open for the New York Knicks. Their cutting was a problem. Their 3-point shooting was a problem. The way that they crashed the glass tonight, they just owned the glass tonight. Offensive rebounds and defensive rebounds did a really good job there. The Pistons just really did not have any answers. And, I think the one thing with the Pistons that I've noticed is they're going to have a very tough time this season if the opposing team has a stretch 5. You saw it opening night with Miles Turner. You saw it again tonight with Karl Anthony Towns. Like, that is something that I think they're going to have a disadvantage with all season long. And it's just a personnel thing. Jalen Duren could not guard Karl Anthony Towns. They tried to throw Isaiah Stewart on Karl Anthony Towns. Isaiah did his best, but Karl Anthony Towns is one of the best centers in the NBA, and he showed tonight why the New York Knicks did make a blockbuster trade for him before the season started. Like, he is just such a good basketball player. But end of the first quarter, New York Knicks 39-13. Yeah, your Detroit Pistons only scored 13 points in a first quarter. Going into the second quarter, we saw Marcus Sasser, which we haven't seen Marcus Sasser too much. Jaden Ivey, I don't want to say that he struggled tonight, but I think JB just kind of went deeper on his bench than he usually would. Got to see a little bit of Marcus Sasser minutes tonight. It's the first time we've seen Marcus Sasser since the Indiana Pacers game on opening night. He did get some minutes tonight, made a couple of shots, a couple of baskets here and there, but that's all I really wrote. I mean, they were up 33 points. We cut it down to 23. Getting closer to halftime, 64-46 at halftime. And it just seemed like the Pistons knew the game was over. The Knicks were just so tenacious on defense, playing the passing lanes. Like, they just did such a good job of just dissecting the Detroit Pistons half-court offense tonight. Going over into the third quarter, JB took Duren out. He was looking to sub Duren out first 30 seconds, minute of the game, because he wasn't playing great defense against Karl Anthony Towns again. And he kind of looked to sub Isaiah Stewart, and obviously Isaiah Stewart kind of stood at the scorer's table for a good 3 minutes before he did check back into the game. But I think that is something to monitor. If Jalen Duren is not going to lock in defensively, he could be losing a starting center position, in my opinion. I think JB wants him to obviously be consistent on both ends of the floor. He wants him to be consistent on offense and defense. And if he's not seeing that, you're going to get ripped out. And I think that's the right approach. You can't take plays off defensively. And I think that was kind of the message that he was trying to send to Jalen Durham, because as soon as he saw Isaiah Stewart, he started trying to play defense. So maybe it's a wake up call he does need, that, that starting spot, isn't locked in stone. Isaiah Stewart could take it away from him if he doesn't start defending better, because these last 2 games have been really bad. The Knicks just kept the pressure like the entire night. They came out of halftime. They were aggressive. They were just a better basketball team tonight. End of the third quarter, 104-74. In the fourth quarter, I literally wrote nothing, you guys. The game was over. I thought the game was over in the first quarter. This was just a really bad game tonight. And we're seeing why a lot of people have the Knicks penciled in as like Eastern Conference Finals contenders with the Boston Celtics. Just offensively, they're just a juggernaut. Like, you're not going to beat the New York Knicks, turning the ball over 22 times, not taking, good care of the basketball, making, sloppy passes yet again. It's just a good basketball team. And it kind of shows you how far away the Detroit Pistons are from being in those conversations with the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. But again, your Pistons lose to the New York Knicks. 128-98 was the final score. We have to hear from our sponsors over at the DraftKings Sportsbook, and then we will answer some of your comments and questions after this quick message. Hey, you guys, I have to tell you about today's sponsor, the DraftKings Sportsbook app. The NBA is finally back. A new season means new ways to get into the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Who's draining threes from beyond the arc? Who's crashing the boards and grabbing rebounds? Get behind your favorite player and the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of the NBA player prop. First time, new DraftKings customers bet $5 and you get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Every point counts with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Pistons Talk. That's code Pistons Talk for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in New York. Call 1-877-8-HOPNY or text HOPNY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 1-888-78-977 or visit ccp.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of the Boot Hill Casino Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.com/bball. Okay, you guys, we are back. Time to get to this part of the podcast where if you have any comments or questions about the game, doesn't even have to be about the game. Could this be about maybe a certain player, maybe about the Detroit Pistons, upcoming opponents? The Pistons do play the Brooklyn Nets this Sunday. The floor is yours. This is the part of the podcast where I like to talk with you guys and interact with you guys the best that I can. But let's kind of get into some of these comments and questions from you guys. So one of the first comments we have is just from Rock Howard saying this game was brutal. Yeah, it was a really tough watch. Like, I was really excited to watch the game tonight. Kind of beating the 76ers last game. I was hoping the Pistons could try to gain some momentum, at least compete a little bit, because the Knicks are a really good basketball team. But yeah, that first quarter was brutal. All 4 quarters were brutal, if I'm being honest, Rock. But I appreciate you dropping on a comment on this, Pistons post-game show. I have a comment from Johnny. I don't recall us having a quarter that bad last season. I mean, I'm sure we could probably go back and look at games from last season, and I'm sure we could probably find a quarter that was that bad. My memory is probably not the best. I do remember the Portland Trailblazers game, like really early in the season, but the Pistons actually had the lead. But to your point, I don't really remember us just kind of just being outmatched the entire game. But yeah, that was just a really really bad game. It's something that I think you don't even need to watch the tape on it. Just burn the tape and just go into a fresh mindset. Get ready for the Brooklyn Nets, and try to at least win 2 games this week. I think that would be a huge accomplishment if you can. Out of 4 games this week, you go 2-2, in my opinion. Comment from Earl: Pistons got a long way to go. Yeah, I mean, I know it's really early in the season, and we've played a lot of Eastern Conference playoff teams, but the more you watch the contenders, like the Bostons, the Knicks, the Cavs, you kind of see how far away that the Pistons are from being in those conversations. They do have young pieces. They do have a new coach that it seems like he's going to be holding them accountable a lot more. Um, I want to try to be positive as I can. Tonight's game isn't making it easy, but I still feel confident in this team that they will get better, but they have to get better at taking care of the basketball. You can't have 15 to 20 turnovers and expect to win basketball games. I think if their turnovers weren't as bad as they were, some of these games would be a lot closer so far this season. But yeah, we do have a long way to go in terms of being in those conversations of possibly making the playoffs. And a comment from Wheezy, shout out to him. Brunson was playing with his food tonight. I'll never say Kate is better than Brunson ever again. See, these conversations I always have a hard time with, and maybe you guys can help me out with it. I think Kate Cunningham is a good player, and I also think Jalen Brunson is a good player. Jalen Brunson obviously is one of those players where I think possibly do you talk about him in an MVP candidate, like the way he's playing. He knew where he wanted to go. He got to his spots in every possession, setting up his teammates. I think Kate Cunningham is a good player. But if you guys want to have those debates, who's better, I'll let you do that. Um, it's just always we get into these debates about like comparisons and players and is this but is this player better than that player? I think Jalen Brunson's a hell of a player. I know it's actually funny. The Pistons, I know this was completely off topic, but wasn't for the Pistons, the Knicks wouldn't have Jalen Brunson. Like if you guys remember, we took on Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, and a no knees Kimball Walker, so they could sign Jalen Brunson. And obviously, we got Jalen Duren in that deal. But the Pistons did a lot of favors for the New York Knicks. I mean, we traded them Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic last deadline. But yeah, Jalen Brunson is a hell of a player. So is Kate Cunningham. But again, like I'll let you guys have those debates. I'm never good at them in terms of like if I think this player is better than that player. I think they're both great players, but at the end of the day, I'll let you guys have those opinions. I have a question or a comment, I should say, from Mr. Longitude. JB was about to get Duran out of there in the beginning of the third. Yeah, I mean, within it seemed like the first 30 seconds or so, maybe it was a minute. He had a miscue on Cat, and he called Stu, who was like, "Yo, get in the game." Like he's not bringing it tonight defensively. And um, JB's comments after the Phillies game, you can kind of read the tea leaves. I don't have the quote in front of me, but I do remember reading Amari Sankofa's Twitter because a lot of these beat reporters type out quotes after the game, but saying like, he's going to look to get Stewart more minutes, possibly because he's a good player. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if the starting center position is locked in stone right now. And I think most Pistons fans watching games, you can see the effort defensively. You can see the difference when Isaiah Stewart is defending in the pick and roll defensively. And you can kind of see the effort with Jalen Duren. It's just not there right now. And maybe him, playing backup center minutes could be better for him. And something that I saw a lot of you guys talk about tonight on Twitter was adding a veteran center. and I'm for it. We saw that the Pistons brought in Taj Gibson last year, and obviously the season was over. And Taj Gibson didn't play a whole lot of minutes, but you saw the impact that he made with James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley and Jalen Duren. I think the Pistons should obviously explore that. You have an open roster spot available. I don't really know what veteran center that you could target, but I don't think it would be a bad idea because a lot of your centers on this team and your front court, for that matter, are fairly young. And I think adding a veteran would definitely help them develop, and it's something that I think a lot of you guys have been very vocal about, and I agree with you. I was kind of calling for backup veteran centers like 2 off seasons ago because I thought that Jalen Duren needed a mentor, Isaiah Stewart needed a mentor, to help them develop. And we're seeing how crucial veterans are in this young NBA season. In a Malik Beasley, in a Tim Hardaway Jr., but yeah, Mr. Longitude, I did see that. I did see JB call Isaiah Stewart's number, but I definitely think like adding some vets in the front court is something that the Pistons should explore. You have an available roster spot open, you have cap space available. Maybe you can look to bring in one of those guys, maybe like a Taj Gibson caliber, maybe a center that could play consistently. I don't really know if there's one out there. I'm sure there's someone on someone's bench in the NBA that you could possibly try to, trade for to try to get some minutes on this team because I think a big reason, and I love Isaiah Stewart. I know I'm kind of rambling. Like we need a rim protector. We need like a legit 7 footer. We need someone that is going to at least attempt to protect the paint. Isaiah Stewart tries his best, but he's like 6'8", and there are times when he has to play a 7 footer that he just can't. Excuse me, I punched my desk. Excuse me. There's times where he just can't block shots. He's going up for blocks, but he's only 6'8". He can't block shots over guys that are 2-3 inches taller than him. But yeah, I did see that tonight from JB. We do have a comment from Organic Lindo. Shout out to him. He's always in all of these podcast live streams. I'm getting incredibly tired of seeing other teams' small forward be just as big or bigger than our centers. Yeah, I mean, tonight probably like you look at Mikal Bridges. He's kind of built. OG Anunoby looks like he could play fullback. Like he's just like a built forward. But yeah, we're pretty undersized at the center position. And I think that's why a lot of you were just kind of talking about like, yeah, like we want to get a veteran center. We needed 7 footer. We need someone to protect the rim. I really don't know what the market looks like in terms of free agency. Maybe you make a trade. I really don't know. It's still very intriguing to me that we have an available roster spot, but we haven't used it yet. I don't know if you want to keep it open because maybe there's a trade down the line, maybe a 3-team trade you want to get into. Maybe it's a trade where you want to try to get draft capital. I know Trajan had mentioned that I'll take on a bad contract for draft picks, kind of like what we did with Tim Hardaway Jr. This summer. But it's really interesting that roster spot is still there. We have a question from Bash. Now, I do apologize. You guys commented over 40 times, so I'm going to try to get through as much of these comments as I can. We have Bash and his question. Why isn't Paul Reed getting a chance to start? He can kind of stretch out the floor. No, can't be worse than Duren at this point. I've talked about it. I don't really know why Paul Reed doesn't get more minutes, especially when Duren isn't bringing it defensively. Like, what could it hurt? I think there's a reason why we did sign him. I'm just not really. I don't have the answers for you, Bash. Why Trajan signed him? You can kind of look at our centers right now. They're all undersized, but yeah, Paul Reed can stretch the floor. Can play a little bit of defense. He can pass it a little bit. I don't really know why he's not getting more minutes. Maybe JB wants to kind of keep a tighter rotation, doesn't want to go too deep onto the bench. But I think Paul Reed has shown a little bit to where like you could trust him enough to possibly get more than just garbage time so far that he's gotten this season. We're gonna have to wait and see if there's any type of starting center change because if you have nights like tonight, I don't really think Jalen Duren's going to be starting too many more games for the Pistons. Get to a couple more of these comments with you guys. So shout out to everyone watching right now. I got a comment from Nuggies that said belt to the ass. Oh gosh, I turned turned the game off. Yeah, I don't blame you, man. Obviously, I can't turn the game off. I'm such a sicko, you guys, that I will watch this team whether they go 0-82 or 82-0. I wanted to see if they tried to fight back. I wanted to see if there was any type of bright spots, maybe, like players like Marcus Sasser. I wanted to see what he looked like, not getting consistent minutes. Saw Wendell Moore out there, Paul Reed. But hey, I mean, yeah, I don't blame you guys if you didn't watch the full game from first to fourth quarter. Like it was really brutal. Like the first quarter alone, like that, like scoring 13 points in a first quarter is like really bad. That's like some high school stuff. But it just shows you like how good the Knicks were and just their ability to play the passing lanes and play defense. It was just it was crazy. Get to some more of these comments from you guys. I have a comment from Wheezy. Duren doesn't know what to do in pick and rolls, and he can't even execute a dribble handoff. This is young Drummond all over again. To be fair to Drummond could at least Drummond played the passing lanes a lot. I'm not saying that he was consistent, but when he was locked in, he could at least, bother some shots or, move his feet, read some stuff. I think Duren's actually a tier below Drummond. And I keep seeing people compare him to Drummond. I think he's actually a tier below Drummond right now. That's just from, me being a Pistons fan and watching a lot of these games during the Drummond era. But yeah, the DHOs, I think I told you guys like last week or this week, like DHOs are so hard to learn, especially for people in the front court, like a Jalen Duren. He has passing ability, but I don't think it's on par of where fans are happy with it. Like you look at Nikola Jokic, he's not the same type of passer as a Jokic. He's not the same kind of passer as a Domantas Sabonis or even a Alperen Sengun, for that matter. Like DHOs are very hard to execute, in my opinion, when you're a center, and I just don't really think that's something that he can learn. But I think it's going to take a few seasons for him to like really good at it. I'd rather them just do more pick and rolls than just all these like DHOs that are forced out of our centers like Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren. Not to say that they can't learn them. I just don't think that they're ready to execute them. And I think that's where a lot of our turnovers do come to, is just failed DHO attempts because our passes are just so sloppy on a night to night basis. It seems like. Dwight Howard. I don't even know what Dwight Howard even in the country, man. Like I wouldn't be opposed. I know some people have like mixed feelings with Dwight Howard. I wouldn't be opposed to Dwight Howard as a vet on this team. I'm sure Dwight would love to be back in the NBA. I don't know how the Pistons feel about Dwight. I don't know how Pistons fans feel about Dwight, I should say. I wouldn't be, like I said, I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's a veteran center. It's a guy that is like during my era, like growing up as a kid, like he was one of the best centers. Multiple defensive player of the year. Could really protect the rim. He could definitely teach all these young bigs that we have on this team how to protect the rim, how to set a good pick. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but again, I don't really know how the organization feels about the Dwight and how Pistons fans feel about Dwight Howard. I know someone had mentioned JaVale McGee, but again, I think he's like 35 or 36, but we just didn't really prioritize that of looking to get a veteran center. We did get vets this year, but we're more focused on shooting, which I understand. The comment from Chrissy, shout out to him. Looks like Trajan is going to be busy before the trade deadline. I don't know if he makes a panic move. Um, they're 1-5 right now. We're 6 games into the season. Obviously, you don't want to have what happened last year where we go on like multiple game losing streaks. But yeah, you have guys in contract years, like rookie contract extensions like Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. Wouldn't be surprised if you hear their names in conversations. And I do want to say Jaden Ivey has been really good this season. He just had a bad game tonight. I thought he got fouled quite a bit tonight, and he just wasn't getting calls. But yeah, don't be surprised if you see their names in just trade rumors with not only local media but national media too. And I think I've been pretty consistent with you guys in terms of that because of the contracts that they may demand going into next summer. Got a question from Bravo. Do you think Duren's value has dropped? I don't even know what his value is, Bravo. Like, we can get into that. Like, what do you guys think Jalen Duren's actual trade value is? Is it a first round pick? Is it a rotational player? Is it maybe a player maybe deeper on the bench? I don't know what his I really don't know what Jalen Duren's trade value would be. And I understand he's only 20. I'll be 21 later this year, but it seems like he's regressed a little bit just from me watching the games. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me being a little bit too hard on him because he's still very young. But you guys could probably tell me like what you think of Jalen Duren as a player and maybe what you feel his trade value is. I have a comment from Michael Powell. Shout out to him. He says, "This is the type of game we should be using as a measuring stick. Yeah, the schedule is tough, but we can't get a true assessment of where we are as a team going forward." I agree. I thought having a tough schedule would kind of show you where the Pistons are going to be in terms of just like a competitive level. And I thought for the most part during these games, we've been somewhat competitive. Turnovers have been a theme almost every night, which they have to clean up on that. But nights like tonight, there was no competitive. There was just no competitive level. Seems like they just weren't ready tonight. It seems like game started and they really weren't ready until like 7:15, 7:30 when they started chipping away at the lead in the second quarter, but the game was already over by then. So I do agree with you, Michael. This tough schedule is a measuring stick of where the Pistons are at in terms of where they could they be a playing team? Maybe this is another rebuilding year. And I know that's probably not what fans want to hear, but I still think this is an improved team on paper. The vets have shown that they can hit threes. But again, like I said, we're very early into the season in terms of having hot takes or, you don't want to get too high, don't get too low. I'm not going to rage bait up here with you guys, but honestly, it's still very early. I have a question from Wheezy again. You ever seen Sengun play, then subject to watch Duren? It'll make you furious. I was really high in Sengun, Wheezy, so I was shocked that he fell in the draft to the Rockets. He was a guy that I thought would really translate well at the NBA level. Rockets got a hell of a player, and really smart of them to extend him, give him a contract extension. But yeah, I mean, in terms of play style, they're completely different. Just his ability to score in the post, his ability to hit a mid range shot, and just his passing ability. They're completely different players. Duran's more of just a rim runner, but the Pistons are trying to make him into like this DHO passing center when it's something he needs to develop. Where Sengun, it kind of seemed like it was already something that he practiced overseas. And when you kind of just look at them in terms of players, they're completely different. But yeah, I 100% agree. It would make you furious if you watched Alper and Sengun versus Jalen Duren on a night to night basis. Their skill levels aren't even in like the same conversation. Get to a couple more of these comments, but I do appreciate you guys hanging out with me on a Friday night. I think we play again on Sunday against the Brooklyn Nets, but yeah, that game was just really really bad. Like I've never seen them play that bad tonight. I have a comment from Devon. I'm not mad. I just wish we played better for when we do make a move. We're not moving a lot of these young pieces too. Yeah, it's. I was thinking about this tonight when I was watching the game, and maybe we can just kind of talk about this as you guys are watching live. When is the time to make a move? Like, when are we going to say, okay, we're trying to win? Because it seems like during this rebuild, we've always kind of got like this PR in like media. Anytime there's like a press release, like, yo, we want to be competitive. Like, when are they going to come out and say, like, well, we want to win? Like, we want to try to make the playoffs? I haven't really like heard that from a coach since like what, Van Gundy? And Van Gundy has been so far removed from this organization. But like, my question is, when are they actually going to make a big splash, make a big move? When are they going to come out and tell us, hey, oh, we're ready to win. We want to compete for the playoffs. We have our franchise guys. We have Cade. We have Ivy, and we like our young pieces and vets. Like, when are they going to come out and just say, like, hey, enough of this, retooling, enough of this restoring. That's the kind of the word that we've kind of got shoved down our throat over the last like 4 years or so. I'm really curious to see what's the breaking point for this front office and ownership. When did they say enough is enough? Like, we've been doing this, going on 4 5 years, and you have other teams. Obviously, other teams had more to fast track the rebuild with, but this losing is going to take a toll on the players that you have drafted and you brought in over the past couple of seasons. I'm just waiting to see like what's going to happen, because eventually you're going to have to make a move. Eventually, you're going to have to maybe trade a player that you drafted that the fan base likes, for maybe more vets, or maybe a player that fits better stylistically with a Cade Cunningham or Jaden Ivey, for example. I'm just really curious to see when the front office and the organization decides, okay, enough is enough. Like, we've been rebuilding for years. We have our players. Let's just go out and try to compete and try to win every game that we're possibly. And I haven't really seen that commitment level in terms of like, a coach or a GM since like the Van Gundy era. And the Van Gundy era was so long ago, but I'm waiting. And I know I do agree with you, Devon. I don't think we're going to be moving any like, big pieces this season. Especially with this draft coming up with Cooper Flag and Ace Bailey and all those guys. Get to a couple of more questions with you guys. I have a comment from Rasheed Wallace's bald spot. Every time I see this username, it makes me laugh. It's probably my favorite YouTube username. He says, "I think it's still good around the league, but he's been very lazy." Yeah, I think the defense has not been like where you want it to be. I do agree with you. Get to more of these comments from you guys watching live right now. I do appreciate you. Um, just leaving comments and stuff like that. There's a lot of comments to get to. I'm just trying to feed through them as I'm talking to you guys um, right now. But again, like it's been so long since this team has been competitive, um, and it's just like, man, I got a comment from Wheezy again. Look at the players like Anthony Black. That's about to be a thing now. When we develop, like, geez Louise, Asar save us. Yeah, Anthony Black is a really good defensive player. Remember him out of Arkansas. Um, I don't know. I don't even know when Asar's coming back either, Wheezy. Like it's been like really like quiet, and I understand why because of like the medical reasons, but hopefully Asar or Bobby does come back soon. Um, to answer your question, Crizzy, there hasn't been any like news on Asar. There was a video from friend of the podcast, Corey Woods. He had posted a video of Asar kind of like doing drills. They were non-contact drills, but he's still working out with the team every day. In terms of Bobby, I don't know. I think he strained his calf, and every time I look at the injury report, he's farther and farther and farther out. So I don't know how severe that calf strain is. Don't really know if it's going to be a long-term injury or not. But he's been out since training camp, so it's been quite some time since we've gotten any update with a Bobby Clipman. In terms of a star, I really don't know. I really don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. Who would you be willing to trade? Just that, small sample size, obviously. We're 6 games into the season. When I'm looking at this team, I would consider Jalen Duren if he doesn't pick up his act defensively, because he's not a player that I think I would want to extend long term if he's not going to commit defensively. And I don't really know what the problem is. I don't know if it's effort. I don't know if it's just having mismatches, guarding, stretch fives on the perimeter. Maybe that's been his problem so far this season. But I would consider Duran. Then you have the vets on your team. Like, do you want to flip Malik Beasley because he's on a 1 year deal for maybe some draft picks? Me, I personally wouldn't. I'd like to keep him. You look at guys like Tim Hardaway, who's been playing pretty well since he's been here in Detroit. Um, I don't know. I think Trajan will be active at the deadline. If I had to guess, I think that Trajan is going to be looking for a new center. That's my hot take for the night. That's my take on November 1st, right after the Pistons got blown up by the Knicks. I think Trajan Langdon looks for a new center, personally, because you need some paint presence. You need someone to protect the rim, and we really don't have that on a night in and night out basis. Um, Wheezy's trade would be Duran and Tobias package to OKC for a future first. Like OKC, who knows? Maybe they do that, maybe they don't. Um, they're a young team, but they're still finding ways to win, and it probably helps when you have an SGA. But hey, yeah, I really don't know. Like I know we're only 6 games into the season, you guys, but so I think when we look at last year versus this year, you don't want to go down that same path where they're losing a bunch of games and you don't do anything in terms of roster shakeup or bringing in more vets, because you don't want them just conditioned to like, oh, we're going to lose a game again. Like you want to start stacking wins together and rebuilding their confidence up, because I'm sure that losing was really hard on all those players last season. And I know some people probably don't want to hear that I would consider trading Duran. But again, the effort this season has been inconsistent. There have been times where he does protect the rim, but there are times tonight where he wasn't really trying. And even the game against Philadelphia, he fouled out in 11 minutes. His energy level and his consistency on defense has to be more consistent. If you want Jalen Duren in a Pistons uniform long term, he's got to be a better defender at the end of the day. No coach is going to continue to give him starter reps night in and night out. That's why he called for Isaiah Stewart in the third quarter tonight, because the defense was non-existent. Um, I honestly like Jalen Duren as a player a lot. I know a lot of you guys love Jalen Duren. I get it, 20 years old, double double machine, but he's got to be better defensively at the end of the day. It's not that I don't like him. I am just going to criticize him when I see areas where I think he can improve and be better at. But I'll just kind of leave it at that. Um, but we'll go to maybe one or two more comments, and I'll wrap this up because I'm going to see you guys again Sunday afternoon after the Pistons who play the Nets. Um, we're going to go to Wheezy because he's been doing a lot of comments in this post game podcast, and I appreciate him. If Durham protects the rim, you can guarantee it'll be offensive rebounds and a three for the other team. Yeah, I mean, it's just little stuff when you watch the game back, where it's like he's either out of position or it's just an effort thing, which maybe he can watch more film and get better that way. But um, I think at the end of the day, it's just effort. And I mean, like he even said, I wasn't trying last year. He said that with Vinny Goodwill. If you guys remember, former Pistons beat reporter James Edwards and Vinny Goodwill had a podcast. Vinny Goodwill asked them when he was at Team USA about last season, and he basically said, "I wasn't trying, I wasn't giving effort." But hey, man, like I don't know. I'll do one more comment in question, and then we'll wrap this podcast up. Appreciate all you guys just dropping comments and watching right now. But um, let's just see if I can get one more good one. This comes from Johnny, and appreciate him. We try to give Cade the benefit of the doubt since he's dealt with injuries and had three different coaches. So is Dern. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully, he turns it around. Yeah, having three coaches in 3 years is probably tough. Again, I think sometimes we forget these players are not even 25 yet. Dern's 20. I think Cade just turned 23. Um, but we can still criticize them for areas in improvement, like turnovers this year. I think we can all agree Cade Cunningham has to get them down. You can't be like a 5-6 turnover a game guard in this league. It's going to be really hard to win basketball games. And during this season, it's defense, it's effort, it's rim protection. And I think you can watch film and get better. Like we're only 6 games into the season. I think they can get better, you guys. But at the end of the day, it's all about watching film, having good practices, and getting better each day. And if they're doing all those things, like Cade's lowering his turnovers, Duran's getting better at defense, we wouldn't be up here talking about it. Like if Duran had a solid defensive game tonight and they still got blown out, we would have talked about Jalen Duran, having a good defensive game, but he just didn't, and that's okay. At the end of the day, no players are going to be perfect for a full 82 games, but eventually you're going to have to start stacking good games together. And fans won't be on your ass like me and you guys in the comment section. I've seen more trade Duran tonight than I've probably seen so far this season. But appreciate you guys watching for the last 44 minutes or so. We'll talk to you guys again on Sunday evening, probably like 5:30. Who knows when the game does end? But I will see you guys then. Hope you guys have a great weekend. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.